Good evening. It is October 26, 2021. It is 7 p.m. Welcome to the San Marino Unified School District Board of Education meeting. Here is your board president, Shelley Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Choi. I do have something to report out from closed session. As a preliminary matter, I would like to provide a report out of closed session. This is to be reflected in the board minutes to clarify and correct a prior closed session report that the board made at its meeting on September 28th, 2021. On September 28th, 2021, 5 members of the board met in closed session, addressed the subject of public employee appointment, employment, superintendent. In relation to that matter, the board provided direction to council regarding a July 2021 letter from the public. While all 5 board members supported the direction given to legal counsel, this unanimous support was reported out as a consensus. To clarify for the record, on September 28th, 2021, 5 members of the board met in closed session, addressed the subject of public employee appointment, employment, superintendent, and provided direction to council regarding a July 2021 letter from the public. Present, Mrs. Ryan, Ms. Jack, Ms. Chong, Mr. Chang, and Mr. Kalaki affirm their support for this direction. This will begin with a call to order. This is a procedural item. Would you please stand and take the Pledge of Allegiance with me?
Have a student who's going to lead us.
Student is going to.
You're going to
Introduce. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, President Ryan. At this time, we are honored to have Bradley Wong, our ASB president from Huntington Middle School, who is here to join us this evening and lead the board in the flag salute.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Hello, my name is Bradley Wong. I'm the ASB president. I'm so excited to be here today, and thank you to Mr. Chapalian, our incredible principal, for letting me be here. And then also thank you to Ms. Keto, our ASB advisor, and also thank you to my parents, Elsie Wong and Brian Wong, for being here, as well as my cabinet from ASB. Today we have my secretary, Sarah Tran, my treasurer, Sean Murthy, our director of technology and social media, Max Zhao, our director of public relations, Lynn Hu, Layla Raleigh, our director of eighth grade activities, and Catherine Sa, our director of 6th grade activities.
Wow. So Bradley, thank you so much. I just wanted to say welcome to your fellow members on the ASB, as well as your parents and your teacher. Okay, Daryl, I got you. You're standing up. He's still standing. No, he recognized you, Darren, already. Oh, okay. So thank you so much. And we're going to move to the front to do.
Well, he's got some more to say.
Oh, more words to say.
No worries. So one of my favorite things about HMS is being able to meet up with old friends and make new ones. One of my favorite experiences so far has been the outdoor education trip to Wonder Valley in 6th grade. Valentine and Carver kids bonded together and made new friendships. I'm really looking forward to the Pally trip that we're going to in 8th grade in March. I also love the different activities we offer at HMS. If you're interested in science, math, music, or sports, there is a group for you. I've been a witness in mock trial. my public speaking skills have improved from streets and debate. I sing bass in our concert choir bel canto, and I even get to compete in our cross-country races at Lacey Park. But most important, this year I have the honor of being ASB president, and with that, I have developed leadership skills and learned time management. But most importantly, I get to help us return to all of the activities we missed out on due to the pandemic. We are very excited for ASB's upcoming events. This Friday, the 29th, we are hosting the all-grade Halloween dance for all grade, Halloween dance, and we will also be distributing Halloween grams, which are basically little treats that students gift from one to another. And also a past school favorite, the Snack Shack, will be returning next month, as well as a hula hoop competition and a football competition will be in November. Many students are excited for the upcoming winter formal dance this December. ASB is working hard to bring you the most fun and memorable school year possible. Thank you.
Bradley, if you could join us here in the center, join the Board of Education, President Ryan, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Delatorre, Mom and Dad, and Mr. Topalian and Mrs. Hazlett. That would be great if you could also join us for a picture.
Do you want me to read this or no? Yes. Okay, just give it to him. Okay.
Lena?
Since his.
Yeah, his board. His board. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Hold my hand down. Mask off for the day. You picture.
1, 2, and 3, and do one more. 1, 2, and then.
Thank you. And Bradley, if you would stand there, we would love to do it if I were to have it. With you.
Yes.
Super proud of you. 1, 2, and 3. One more. 1, 2, and. All right.
You can.
It's up to you.
There you go.
Bradley. Thank you.
Thank you. To stay. Thank you for coming.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Richter and Dr. Delatorre for implementing this regular practice of inviting our students to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I think that's it's working out really well. Thank you so much. All right, we now need an action item, approval of the agenda on 6B.
I make a motion to approve the agenda. My second.
Thank you, Mrs. Jack. Thank you, Mrs. Chong. With that, roll call. Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mrs. Jack,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, student board member, Miss Thank you. Motion passes for the approval of the agenda. Now, 6C is approval of minutes. This is also an action item for October 12th, 2021 Board of Education meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from October 12th.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Chung. Thank you, Mr. Chang. And with that, roll call vote, Mrs. Jack,
Aye.
Mrs. Chung,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, student board member, if you will. Thank you. The motion passes for the approval of minutes for October 12th. Public comments. This is a procedural item. The Board of Education has adopted Board Policy 9323B to ensure the public's right to be heard in any matters pertaining to the San Marino Unified School District. Persons who wish to provide public comment will have three options to submit public comment. Submit through an online form, request to speak during the meeting via Zoom, request to speak during the meeting in person via the public comment card. The public may submit public comments for the open or closed session on October 26th from 11 a.m. through 3:30 p.m. The comments received during this time will not be read during the meeting, but will be provided to the Board of Education. As of October 6th at 3:30 p.m. today, there were no comments. Requests to speak during the meeting via Zoom. During public comment, the meeting will pause for 1 minute to take requests to speak. Raise hand function is used to take requests during the public comment period. For online attendees, please press the raise hand icon to add yourself to the queue. For phone attendees, dial *9. The speaking order will be determined based on the order of requests received. Individual speakers will be unmuted and called to speak. You may also request to speak during the meeting in person via the public comment card. Please complete the public comment card. Submit the completed card to the designated drop box with the assistant to the superintendent no later than when the agenda section items not on the agenda, consent, information, action is called by the board president. Opportunities for public comment are offered prior to closed session at the start of the regular open session for items not on the agenda and prior to consent, information, and action items for matters on the agenda. The Board of Education reserves the right to add a public comment period prior to any individual item on the agenda. 5 minutes may be allotted to each speaker, a maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. However, in the event there are more than 4 speakers on the same subject matter, the board president retains the discretion to adjust and limit the time allocated to each speaker to ensure that all wishing to speak will be heard within the 20-minute allotment. Communication from the audience regarding matters that are not on the agenda are to be made at this time, and this is an informational item.
We're pausing for 1 minute to take requests to speak concerning matters not on the agenda. If you would like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon or dial *9. We have 30 seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request to speak regarding matters not on the agenda, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit the public comment card. Okay, President Ryan, we have one request from the San Marino Teachers Association.
All right, please invite her to join.
San Marino Teachers Association, your line is now open.
Thank you. I would like to make two comments. Comment number one, devastated. Devastated and humiliated and hurt are the three words that have come via text and personal phone calls from our staff to me. Devastated, hurt, humiliated, because once again, our board has acted or not acted to show good faith, to show compassion and appreciation to the teachers, because we have yet to hear any conversation as to COVID monies that were set aside for teachers, which the district has chosen not to grant our teachers. An analysis showed that if everyone received the average of $1,500 for a summer and a year and a half of work, it would be less than $210,000 cost. But our board can see setting $1.5 million aside to pay for the Barth Athletic Complex, for the interest of that complex. It is outrageous. Please, I'm beckoning you. Consider the needs of your teachers and staff. It is outrageous that a huge amount of money would go to pay an interest instead of granting one-time money to a district full of teachers and staff who were the best at returning to school before any other school in the San Gabriel Valley. You would set aside monies to pay interest off. We're not saying don't do that. But once again, we ask that you look to your own before serving the interests of the board. We know that politically this is not a great look, but you are breaking our hearts. 1.5 million, and you can't see your way to a little over 200,000? Comment number two. We don't have substitute teachers because we don't pay our substitute teachers enough to work for us. That doesn't hurt us to pay substitute teachers what they are worth. Teachers cannot do their planning time duties. They cannot meet and prepare lessons for the quarter for their students. People cannot take a day off of work and be sick because they're worried that their class will have to be spread among other teachers, or administrators will have to come down and take over their course. When we do that, when we have to cover for one another, people are not doing their job the way it should be done. I know that we know that the district has said, we've flown the position. We're looking for 3 full-time subs.
1 minute.
They're not going to do it unless it's worth their time. It is worth their time. It is worth our time. Please fix this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
That's it.
All right. Next, 7B, communication from the audience regarding matters that are on the consent agenda are to be made at this time.
Okay, we are again pausing for 1 minute now to take requests to speak regarding matters in the consent section. If you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. We have 30 seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon or dial *9 or submit a public comment card. President Ryan, we have 2 requests. The first one is Mr. Joe Lim. Joe Lim, your line is now open.
Hello, thank you for your time. I have a question for the board pursuant to item 12A on tonight's agenda. And that question is, does Ms. De La Torre presently have or hold all of the appropriate credentials pursuant to the requirement of holding a superintendent position? If she does not, how does the board plan on mitigating the matter? I'm not talking about waiving, that's a documentary matter. I'm talking about mitigating the fact that she may not have the appropriate credentials. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Choi.
Okay. And next, we have San Marino Teachers Association. San Marino Teachers Association, your line is now open.
Thank you. I would like to express gratitude and thanks to the parents of Huntington Middle School, to S. Lee, various parents at Carver, various parents at San Marino High School, the San Marino Schools Foundation's families, and the football boosters. Together, they donated over $155,000 to our school district. We know that we are indebted to them and that in fact our district does rely on their generous and kind donations, which is why we are asking how it is that the district has not considered, or the board has not considered, the adjustment of pay for the superintendent, regardless of who that might be. There is a $500 a month stipend to drive a car. I wish someone would pay my car payment. There are other incentives. In a district that relies so heavily on donations, I would like to ask the board to please consider adjustments to salary for a superintendent and the hiring of other positions at an executive level when those at the bottom, serving students, serving parents, are struggling to make ends meet and are scrambling to cover for one another. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, public hearing, Ms. Pearl Mazuka and Dr. Lena Richter. This is an information item. The Board of Education is to conduct a public hearing to discuss the ESSER 3 expenditure plan submission.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Ryan, members of the board, executive cabinet, and members of the public. As part of the requirement for the elementary and secondary school emergency relief 3, known as ESSER 3 expenditure plan, it's required that we conduct a public hearing. Later on in the agenda, Dr. Richter and I will give more details about the plan, but at this time, we are opening it up for public comment. Thank you.
We are pausing for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding the public hearing of the elementary and secondary school emergency relief 3 expenditure plan. If you would like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon or dial *9 or submit a public comment card. We have 30 seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9 or submit a public comment card. Okay, we have one request from San Marino Teachers Association. San Marino Teachers Association, your line is now open.
Thank you. We appreciate so greatly the ability to log into our district website to be able to attend our board meetings. Would the board please consider having the presentations that are presented at the board made available to those tuning in? Oftentimes, it is difficult to have questions and comments when the information is received in real time. We know that the board is able to receive this information so that they can be better informed as they ponder and discuss items. I would like for the board to please consider, and the district itself, consider making these presentations available to everyone, that we might all be on the same footing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, do we need to open up for any other questions from the board, or we're good? Okay. The consent section. I need a motion for the consent section 9A to 9H.
I move to approve for the consent agenda from 9A to 9H.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Thank you, Mrs. Chong. With that roll call vote, Mrs. Jack,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye, and our student board member.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion has passed for the consent section. Next, in 10 is a communication section. This is a procedural item. In 10A, communication from the Board of Education. Let's start with you, Mrs. Chong.
Oh, I attended the Huntington breakfast. I wanted to thank Mr. Kalaki's wife Stephanie and Nancy Coe, who are our chairs. They put on a fabulous event. Mr. Topalian sacrificed his body for a couple of hours in the dunk tank, which was quite entertaining. I also attended a football game, and that was a little sad, but still fun to watch. And PTA meetings continue to abound as well. And nothing really going on other than sort of the usual things. I'm looking forward to a lot of the arts programs. Oh, actually, I did want to say I did go to the Almost Maine production at the high school last week, and that was fabulous. We have a new drama teacher, and I just found the production so mature and thoughtful and entertaining. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to see things live on stage again. So.
Thank you, Ms. Chong. Mr. Chang?
October 13, I attend the San Marino School Foundation newcomer reception. I think it is a very meaningful and important function for the school district to communicate with the newcomer by school foundation. So I saw there's a couple of parent family. So that one they moved from the New Jersey, another one they moved from the Arizona, and also there's two the family. One is a caretaker fellow, and he's a scholar from the Israel, and he also chose his kid stay in our school district. And then the October 18, I accompany with superintendent and also director of curriculum, and we observe for our dual enrollment program with PCC. So the subject is kinesiologist. So I appreciate, this semester with superintendent leadership, we are able to open, because this is one of the issue for the last 5 years, right? So some of the parents, they have a wish list. They keep pushing, but it doesn't mean that we are not doing, because we always need to work with the PCC administration. But I appreciate that finally we finish this issue, so we can check out, okay, for the dual enrollment. And then the October 20, I attend a plant the tree. This kind of for the Arbor Day matter, but this year, the Chinese Club San Marino, they postponed to do this. But this is always a very meaningful event for the community, plant the tree. And then October 23, I also attend the Huntington breakfast. This is a very traditional event for this community. I appreciate after COVID-19 pandemic, our whole community, from the PTA leadership and the school, Huntington School, all they are able to make this event happen. Thank you so much to everyone. And finally, I think everyone see the first page for the little Paul passed away. I want to take this time in memory of little Paul. If you are in the school board meeting for a long time, little Paul always is one of our audience. Sometimes, because we don't have an issue, the audience, they are not interested to sit in with us. But Paul always sitting there. So at least we have an audience. So I want to memorize the little Paul. Okay, let's pray for him. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Mr. Kalaki?
Thank you. During the football game against Monrovia, I joined the junior class ASB and working the concession stand at the football game. Also had helped set up the movie night at HMS, which was a great event and definitely enjoyed by the families that were able to attend there. Also, I was part of the volunteer staff at the Huntington Breakfast, and I wanted to give a big thank you to every volunteer, both adult community members as well as students from multiple campuses in our district who volunteered their time to make a very successful and very well attended and enjoyed activity. And then also thank both of the chairs of the committee as well as the entire committee for all the work that they put in to try to get the community back on campus and do what we could to work within COVID restrictions and still provide a great, very successful event. I also wanted to thank Mr. Topalian, as was mentioned earlier, for being a great sport that I know a lot of the kids definitely enjoyed, with not just being in a dunk tank, but being in a dunk tank that had a commode above the head of Mr. Topalian. So those are the types of things that I think our students will remember for a very long time and well into the future. And it's what really reminds me of what makes our district special across the district. So also, I did get the opportunity to be invited and attend tours of all 4 campuses with Dr. De La Torre, as well as Dr. Richter. And it was a very wonderful day to have seen the exceptional teachers and students and staff and administrators at all 4 of our campuses. The things that are being done on our campuses with our students and being put forward with student engagement in many different ways was exciting. It was inspiring. So I wanted to take a moment and specifically thank our teachers for everything that they are doing and what they have done and what I know that they will continue to do to help our students. So that's been the last couple of weeks. So thank you very much to everybody at all the campuses.
Thank you, Mr. Clarkey. Mrs. Jack?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Okay. My report will be brief as well. In October, I attended the San Marino Schools Foundation along with Dr. De La Torre. I know that Mr. Chang was there and Mrs. Chong, and it was a mixture to welcome the new families to San Marino. It was wonderful seeing all the families with young middle school and even high schools joining our community in this family event. City Talk, I joined, I think Mrs. Chong was there, right, on the City Talk. And we got some answers to questions that the community members have. It was very nice to hear from our city manager, Marcella Marlowe, as well as the different city employees that shared their answers to community questions regarding budget and finance, and also we also had an interesting presentation at the City Club with, I'm not doing it on purpose, but in terms of our speaker for Alzheimer's. And I was really stalling. I was trying to get the word out and I couldn't do it. So she spoke on. Okay, I know she thinks I did it on purpose. Okay, so it was a great topic. I know that Mr. Choi was there, Dr. Richter and Dr. De La Torre, and it was very informative. And the number 1 answer to avoid Alzheimer's is exercise. Okay, so exercise is the number 1 caveat that she gave us. And the doctor was just very inspirational. I know Mr. Chang was there as well. Next, I met with the district auditor on the 15th, and then I attended an Asian youth fundraiser just to recognize the magnitude of what the COVID has done. A lot of our families became food insecure, job insecure, as well as medical attention insecure. So AYC is Asian Youth Center, and they address the issue by collaborating in the community to support those families in need. And thank you so much. I know that Mr. Kalaki and Stephanie were there to lead our Huntington breakfast. It was very successful, very well attended. I think that the kids had fun being out. Dr. Delatorre brought her family, so it was really nice to see everybody out having a great time. And this week I also attended an AXA presentation regarding some challenges that are facing some of our families as we pivot to return to school, but some students are still rather fearful to return to school. So heard a lot about that. Next, we have communication from the superintendent.
Thank you, President Ryan, members of the Board of Education. It's been a real busy couple of weeks since we've last met. One of the best parts of my day is when I get to go out and visit a lot of the classrooms. And we did have that experience. Mr. Kalaki went along with Dr. Richter and myself, and we were able to hit every single school in the district. It was just a marvelous experience to go into these classrooms and be able to talk with students about what they're working on. And inevitably, every single classroom that we walked in, we were able to see student engagement. They were all engaged in what they were working on. They were excited to be there. They were working on things that they felt were meaningful. And so it was just a really great day. In addition to that, as Mr. Chang mentioned, we were able to accompany him on a school visit to San Marino High School to go into our PCC dual enrollment course in kinesiology. So we do have 2 classes now that we are offering that are dual enrollment courses at San Marino High School. Aside from the one that I mentioned, we have psychology. And so we're really excited about that. We are also looking to expand our programs. Dr. Richter has arranged for a trip to Muir High School, wherein the high school administration and the counselors, along with Dr. Richter, will go out and explore their early college admissions program that they have quite successfully implemented at that school. And they're gonna really dig in and find out whether or not that is something that makes sense for us to be able to recommend to the board that we implement here at San Marino High School. So we are looking at a lot of different opportunities to expand our programming and our CTE pathways also. And we hope to be able to collect all this information as mentioned earlier and then schedule a board study session where we can present all of that information to you and you can decide what we should do from there. I also wanted to mention that we, in the interest of making sure that our school district is in a position to protect our students at all time and that we are providing safe learning environments for our students, we were able to provide threat assessment training last Friday, October 22nd. It was an all-day training, and in the morning, Dr. Tony Valise, who is a Harvard Medical School trained forensic and clinical psychologist. He's also a well-known national and international trainer on threat assessment and also prevention of school violence and prevention of workplace violence. So half of the day was spent with him lecturing and really teaching us how to interview students, how to assess potential threats that may come in the form of a community member, a disgruntled ex-husband, ex-wife. You just never know where these threats can come from, but we have to have a threat assessment team that is a multidisciplinary team that can look at these potential threats through different lenses to determine whether or not we need to take certain steps to protect our students. Law enforcement is involved in this process, and we had a commander and a sergeant attend the training as well. Because the district has had so much turnover in their counseling department, in administration, we felt that it was timely and important for us to be able to get everybody trained once again. And in the afternoon, we had Anon Stevie, and Anon is he is a former member of the Israeli, I gotta get this right, IDF. So he was a combat veteran of the 1982 Lebanon War, and he's trained troops for combat in the areas of small unit tactics, airborne operations, close combat, and emergency medicine. He currently trains law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, school district personnel as well, in order to survive violent encounters. He also trains Navy SEALs on Coronado Island in San Diego. So the afternoon was more of a hands-on experience in terms of being able to watch video of him providing this training. And his program, his training program, was previously funded by Homeland Security. And so it's a very well-respected program. And he gives illustrations of how in previous school shootings, the adults didn't always make the right decisions. And of course, you're under an inordinate amount of stress when you're in that situation. But he trains you to make a decision on what you're going to do in advance of the situation occurring. And you will, in that stressful situation, fall back on your training. This is a program that we're looking at partnering with San Marino Police Department on and offering it not only to all of our teachers and instructional assistants, but our board as well, if you're interested in that type of training, which could be helpful in any environment, not just in the school environment, of course. But we're thinking about having it on a Saturday. It's an 8-hour training with Dr. Belize and Anon Stevie. So I can send you their bios if you're interested. I'll put something in the weekly board memo to cover that as well. I also wanted to mention that due to the generosity of our Rotary, and I'd like to thank Mr. Neer, who happens to be sitting here in the audience today. He was very, very thoughtful and generous in requesting that the Rotary consider funding our Raptor system, which is a security system that we're going to be using at each of the school sites. And Dr. Choi has been working hard on the implementation of that system and has asked for all of our principals to make sure that they push something out in their newsletters to make sure that the parents are aware that they can't just come in and sign a clipboard. Now they're going to have to bring an ID and swipe their ID, and then there's a background check that's done, and you get a badge, and you have to wear the badge that prints out as long as you're cleared, while you're on campus at all times. But one of the things that I overheard Daryl saying in the PTA meeting this morning was, but if you have a background, if you have something in your background, it's going to come up. So you just have to know that and understand that. But we have to be safe. We have to make sure that we're protecting our students. Other school districts use this system all the time. It is the gold standard for security screening. And so we're trying to use multiple measures to be able to protect our students. So if you have any questions on that, please let us know. We are going to, I assume Dr. Troy will put something in the weekly board memo for all of you to review on the Raptor system.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'd like to just, with regard to what you're saying, say thank you to Mr. Neer and to the Rotary for doing that. The safety of our campuses is so important, and to know that Rotary took part in helping to protect our children and our teachers and our staff. I want to thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next, we have communication from the audience regarding matters on the action agenda are to be.
Student board member.
Oh,
Student board member.
oh, I'm sorry. Communication from student board member 10C. So sorry.
No updates from me. It's okay. Yeah, no, I'm okay.
Oh, are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. Communication from the audience regarding matters on the action agenda are to be made at this time. This is an information item. Mr. Choi?
Okay, thank you, President Ryan. We are now pausing for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding matters in the action items of the agenda. If you would like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. We have 30 seconds remaining. If you would like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Okay, President Ryan, we have one request to speak from the San Marino Teachers Association. San Marino Teachers Association, your line is now open.
Thank you. I'd like to make some comments on the superintendent employment agreement. In part 2, salary, 2D, to be specific, it says that on the in the bottom of the paragraph, it says the superintendent's salary is understood to be indefinite or uncertain. Therefore, the board reserves the right to grant the superintendent retroactive salary increases notwithstanding anything in the California Constitution that might be interpreted to the contrary. I'm not sure what that means, notwithstanding anything in the California Constitution. So I would hope that when the discussion among the board members begins, someone I would hope might be able to in your conversation clarify for those of us tuning in what that means. In section 3, fringe benefits. I've mentioned this once before. Our superintendent will potentially be earning over $245,000 a year. And section B talks about transportation. And there's a $500 stipend, which is supposed to be added or I think the wording is part of the salary. So I'm just curious as to if that's $245,000 plus the $500 a month. And if that's the case, I would like to remind the board that there are several members of the at the district office who drive to LACO meetings, and they receive mileage reimbursement. And I would argue, as many of our SMTA constituents have argued, that someone earning a salary in excess of $200,000, adding a $500 a month stipend isn't viewed as fair or something we can afford. Going down to section 4, superintendent's duties. I am here to speak in defense of Miss Linda Delatorre, because we know that she is a hard worker and is at the beck and call of the community and those she serves. In 4A, it says that her primary responsibility, or the superintendent shall have primary responsibility for execution of board policy, responsibility for the duties prescribed by the Education Code section. It also says in section D that the board has a primary responsibility for formulating district policies and setting district goals. I have no doubt that Dr. Delatorre is about getting the job done, and she has done a lovely job. She has a great attitude. There's a different tone. I am very proud of Dr. Delatorre, and as I've said before, it's nice to see one of our own in a leadership position in a place where
1 minute
someone
remaining.
knows who we are. So I am kindly and respectfully asking the board to let her do her job. So many times actually, every time that I have been at the district office for a negotiations meeting or for some other matter, I have seen a board member walk into her office and take time to discuss important matters. People need time to do their job. Please give Dr. Delatorre a break. We have a board president who is more than capable of setting a weekly appointment with her or bi-weekly if needed, but we have 5 board members who I'm afraid might be taking an excessive amount of time from her schedule. Please know that she has to meet, and often does, with our principals, our teachers, our specialists, our program specialists, as well as union responsibilities, meeting with the union, and with just parents in general. Let's give her time to work out the assignments that she's been given.
5 minutes is up.
Thank you.
And that's not where I wanted to stop.
Thank you. All right, next it's action item. This is procedural. This is in consideration of an action on employment contract for Dr. Linda. Oh, before, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm so sorry. For action item 12A, there is a request submitted for public comment. The topic on the agenda is 12A, contract for Dr. Linda Delatorre. I'd like to invite up to the podium Dennis Kinnear, who lives at 1425 Hampton Road. Thank you, Dennis.
Hi, I'm Dennis Neer. I live, as you said, on Hampton Road. So I have a few things. Before I start my comments, I'd like to thank C. Joseph Chang for his comments about little Paul Ilioff. And I just want you to know that the community is sorry to see this wonderful soul leave us, and that the community has come forward and said that they want to do something in his memory. And they've asked me to be a part of a committee to head up what they call the Little Paul Ilioff Memorial Project Fund. And we're out fundraising for that, to do projects in San Marino, for San Marino, and for the schools. So we're asking people to donate, and I will tell you that already we have over $11,000 pledged, received and pledged for this project. Our goal is to come up with about $20,000. And then we have a committee with oversight from Rotary Charities to make sure that this thing works. I also want to say that I'm going to come after every one of you folks and ask for you to consider a donation to this fund of any amount, small or large. And so you'll be hearing from us. And we think it's a very good project to remember one of the favorite, probably best known people in San Marino. He's lived here for 60 years, and he's had his issues with life. He's dealt with them. He's always smiled, and he's always been good to us. So we're going to be good to his memory. Second thing I'd like to say is this. Dr. Delatorre commented on the safety thing that they said that Rotary is going to consider this. Rotary has considered it. The $21,000 for this project is available. All we need to do is hear from the appropriate person at the schools that they're ready to go. Turns out that I'm the treasurer that takes care of that. I will write the check, but it's not my check, but it's a check from Rotary Charities. The money has been allocated and set aside and we're ready to go to support the schools in that area.
Thank you so much.
So let me get to the comments that I want to make, but let me emphasize that the comments that I'm making right now are not just my comments. They're the comments that I have heard and my wife has heard from a number of residents and voters in the school district about this issue on the agenda. It has to do with Dr. Leila Torres' appointment as the superintendent. Everybody that I have talked to, and I'm speaking for myself personally and the people I talk to, we fully support her appointment to be the superintendent of the San Marino Unified School District. We think she has done a terrific job in her positions over the years and as acting superintendent. We know that she's by education qualified in every single way. We think that we support her, and we hope that the board unanimously supports it too. But in this issue, I have read all 27 pages of the employment contract. And I will tell you that I was shocked in reading this. This idea of having an appointment for 1 year and then in the next year back to an old position is just, in my judgment, ludicrous.
1 minute.
It's not the way you do business. And I use this word guardedly, but I think you folks are crazy to do it the way you're doing it. I think it's wrong. I think it's going to have long-term detrimental effects on the San Marino School District and the community. And so what I would suggest is that you have an agreement with Dr. De La Torre to be the superintendent, as you normally do for a qualified individual. Make it a 3-year contract. And then, of course, during that time, you can evaluate and do this. But to do a 1-year contract is crazy. And I just encourage you to rethink this, make it a 3-year contract and move on, because you've got a great candidate for this position. In fact, we in the community believe that all of us are very lucky to have her as the candidate. So that's what I think, and I will tell you that there are a number of people standing behind me believing the same thing. We're residents, we're voters. We want to see you do the right thing. And the right thing is to do a 3-year contract. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So 12A, consideration of an action on employment contract for Dr. Linda De La Torre. This is an action item.
May I make a motion?
Yes.
So I make a motion that the board approve the employment agreement for Dr. Linda De La Torre as superintendent for the 2021-2022 fiscal year, with the right of return as an assistant superintendent for administrative services in the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Thank you. I'd like to second that.
I second.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. You go ahead.
Sorry. Never mind.
Okay. This is a summary of contract terms. Under item 12 on the open session agenda, the board is considering and now taking action on an employment contract for Dr. Linda De La Torre. A copy of the proposed employment contract for Dr. De La Torre is available at the back of the room and was posted along with the agenda 72 hours before tonight's board meeting. Under section 54953 of the government code, the board must provide an oral summary of the salary and other compensation recommended to be paid to a local agency executive before any final action on an executive contract. The proposed contract formalizes the terms and conditions of employment for Dr. Delatorre as superintendent for the 2021-22 fiscal year. Also provides her with continued employment for the 22-23 school year as the assistant superintendent of administrative services. For the 2021-22 school year, the proposed compensation is $245,000 for the year, with the same health and welfare benefits given to other district management employees, as well as a transportation allowance and technology stipend. For the 22-23 school year, the proposed compensation is $245,000 for the year, with the same health and welfare benefits provided under the board's policies and administrative regulations, as well as a transportation allowance and cell phone stipend. And with that, I have a motion on the floor from Mrs. Jack and Mrs. Chong. So roll call vote. Discussion, okay, discussion.
Sorry, was I the second on that or? you did?
I did and then you did, so.
For the record. So just wanted to clarify for the record as well, that when we say school year and fiscal year interchangeably, we are referring to the same
Fiscal year.
or the,
Mhm.
because at the management level, they're operating on that same calendar. No, so we're not saying school year, school day for the student.
Are you, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to, I prepared a statement. I could read it or you can speak.
That's okay. I don't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
I prepared a statement because I know there's been a lot of conversation around this for quite some time. So I just wanted to put it out in an easy way. So when Jeff Wilson announced his intention to resign as our superintendent in March, our district was in a state of much uncertainty. We were still in the middle of a raging pandemic. We had just lost the first parcel tax election in March and had to had to issue pink slips, as it's known, to many teachers. And we then subsequently lost 2 board members who resigned their seats. And all this while we were finishing up the worst school year in history. We were in no position to embark on a search for a new superintendent. In the gap, we took the time to carefully evaluate and plan for next steps and relied on the people in our district who stepped up and committed themselves to our students without hesitation. For me, one of those individuals was Dr. Delatorre. She had already been performing multiple roles in her capacity as Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services. Appointing her as the acting superintendent in July satisfied our legal requirements in the immediate present need. And in the months that followed, Dr. Delatorre has demonstrated her ability to bring stability and experience to critical operations and management as we reopened our schools amidst the pandemic. I appreciate her perspective and knowledge of our community and school needs. I'm confident in her ability to continue to serve as an excellent operational superintendent as we progress through the remainder of this still unprecedented school year, as we look to support our teachers, our staff, our families, and our students to participate fully in our educational programs, extracurricular activities, and athletics. And it is imperative that we continue to keep the focus on our students' needs as we all work together with an attitude of compassion and gratitude. We have goals in front of us that require us to be responsible and remain focused. And meanwhile, we continue to plan together for an innovative and sustainable future for our district. And we will continue to look at ways to support our staff and our families. Our community has come back from a very difficult year and a half with a dedication and commitment that humbles me and calls me to continue to step up for our children, and for which I'm always grateful to the people of San Marino.
I would just like to speak to one issue. I think that board member Chon brings up a good point that having Dr. Delatorre acting as superintendent through the remainder of this year will assist with stability in our district. I have confidence in that. My concern is not on that issue as much as it is about a specific term in the addendum to the contract, specifically the salary that would be provided to the assistant superintendent position. I think that raises some concerns.
No other further comment?
I'd just like to make one comment. In keeping with what Board Member Chan said, I believe and I truly think that there are so many in our community that believe that Dr. Delatorre's expertise, her credentials, her experience, her demeanor, and her acumen in so many things that you have helped with our district, in effect, doing not one, not two, but 3 jobs over the years without remuneration, has been an extraordinary service to this community, this district, and to our children. And without your volunteerism, your energy, your enthusiasm, your commitment, I'm not so sure this district would be where it is now without everything that you have done. So I am proud that you will be staying here as our superintendent till the end of the year. And then obviously with the right to come back as the assistant superintendent. And with that salary, I believe it really is, you are, in my opinion, entitled to it. And for everything that you have done and saved our district over not 1, not 2, not 3 years, for doing not 1, not 2, but 3 jobs, I think is why we have the agreement the way it is set forth herein. And this is the reason why I am proud to make the motion to approve the contract.
Okay. All right, Jennifer, Joseph wants to speak, okay.
I just want to make a comment on the this agreement. Well, as you know, the superintendent contract is open to the public. So today we put this in the action agenda. So if you are the first time to look at the this agreement, definitely you have a different imagination or some of comment. So as a board member, especially I'm speak on behalf of myself. Okay, I respect each of you. You have a different comment, but to be honest to you, you know, after Dr. Wilson suddenly left, you know, we need to build up the leadership immediately, but unfortunately, you know, for last several months, you know, due to the, you know, the community have the different comment. So then but each school board meeting, at the closed section, we try to make an effort to discuss about this agreement. So finally, this is the one we present to the community. And I believe each board member already make every effort and try to figure out which way is the right way. But you are the community people, you can make your own. But I want to say if you look at this the contract, you can have I interpret this a good way, the contract, to help the employee working for the school district more than the 30 years. I think I already work for the 20 years, but this employee even longer than me. So I already observed her for the 20 years. I think yeah, she is very loyal to the school district, and she always dedicate her service during in the different posts. So I think we need to give her a try, and I think if you look at the last 2 months, it's very smoothly. Some of the group people, they make a comment, like they want to be transparent for the school board meeting we are doing, for taping and for the due enrollment, they already carry out. So I think we evaluate it's more the positive. Yeah, I haven't seen real the negative. Yeah, so to me, I will experience more than the superintendent. This movement, most important is stabilize for this school district, because don't forget we are the parent or adult. We have a lot of argument, but who will sacrifice? The student. So it's very important. We need to make sure teaching and learning is keep going. So I think this is the result. We grant the first year for the superintendent. So that's my own comment. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not going to comment. I'd like to do roll call. Mr. Clackey?
Based on the issue with the salary of the assistant superintendent matching that of the superintendent position, I'm going to vote nay.
Mr. Chang?
Yes. Aye.
Thank you. Mrs. Chung?
Aye.
Mrs. Jack?
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan? Aye. So the motion has passed regarding our new superintendent for 2021. Student board member. Thank you, student board member. All right. 12B, resolution number 10, supporting people of Asian ancestry, condemning violence and hatred towards people of Asian descent. Dr. Linda Delatorre, this is an action item. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt resolution number 10 as it condemns hatred, xenophobia, harassment, and violence towards people of Asian ancestry and commits to creating a supportive, inclusive culture that fully embraces students of Asian descent. This is a discussion action item.
Thank you, President Ryan, members of the Board of Education. We are tonight presenting you with draft resolution number 10, supporting people of Asian ancestry and condemning violence and hatred toward people of Asian descent. And I will read the resolution. Whereas basic human decency requires a respect and acceptance for people of all backgrounds, and the motto of the United States of America is E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one. And whereas America's professed values include a commitment to liberty, equality, and justice for all, values the country has often failed to reach, but should never stop striving to attain. And whereas America's diversity is a source of strength and prosperity, and California's vibrant communities benefit from cultural contributions made by people of every ancestry. And whereas California is home to the largest population of Asian Americans, a group that has enriched the state in countless and invaluable ways. And whereas
People of Asian descent have suffered intense discrimination since California's earliest days, including but not limited to the inhumane policies and treatment toward Chinese immigrants in the gold mining era, the Chinese Exclusion Act, the persecution of Filipino American workers, and the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. And whereas that discrimination continues today in the repugnant form of terroristic violence against Asian Americans, and a climate where Americans of Asian descent are being bothered, targeted, scapegoated, and killed because of their race. And whereas an analysis by the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University, San Bernardino, found that overall hate crimes in America's largest cities decreased by 7% in 2020, while hate crimes targeted people of Asian ancestry rose by nearly 150% during that same period. And whereas in many school districts, fear of violence and harassment has been identified as a factor in low rates of return to in-person instruction among Asian American students. And whereas schools have an obligation not only to prepare students academically, but also to provide the foundation for personal growth and responsible participation in civic life. And whereas schools must avoid the model minority trap and the related tendency to overlook the circumstances of Asian American children merely because this student group on the whole demonstrates high academic achievement. And whereas our values of inclusiveness, humanity, and respect demand that we support students of Asian ancestry and the larger Asian American community in this moment of national strife and at all times. Now therefore be it resolved that the governing board of the San Marino Unified School District condemns hatred, xenophobia, harassment, and violence towards people of Asian ancestry and commits to creating a supportive, inclusive culture that fully embraces students of Asian descent. So with that, we are asking that the board approve resolution number 10.
I have to do a roll call. Okay, any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to
Okay.
approve this.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Thank you, Mr. Kalaki. With that, Mrs. Jack,
Aye.
Mrs. Chung,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, student board member. Motion passes. The approval of resolution number 10, supporting people of Asian ancestry and condemning violence and hatred towards people of Asian descent.
Can I make a comment?
Mhm.
Okay, the reason today we put this in the agenda because the couple months ago, we have a 2-to-2 meeting with city council. And then they bring up the EDI, the issue is very important this moment for the entire city. So then, as you know, the last year actually under Dr. Wilson leadership, we also have come out one resolution, but not specified. But this moment, we think we should emphasize one more time. It doesn't mean there is an issue in the San Bernardino community. Actually, this community is very harmonious than compared to other city. But this just a resolution. Just make sure you know we are reflect to the entire society in the United States, and we also want to make sure we take a lesson. You know so that's a more educational the purpose. And as you know, I think the 2024 to 2025, right? We need have some ethnic the curriculum. So this the purpose, you know, just for the preparation. So it doesn't mean we're trying to do the specially, yeah. So I think that this is the purpose. So I want to share to everyone, yeah. And appreciate, the board president leadership and the board member understanding, and also superintendent leadership. So we are able to present this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Any other comments? No? Do I have a motion?
I think you made a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chang, you made the motion.
Yeah.
Mr. Kalakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chang and Mr. Kalaki. With that, we'll take roll call. We did? All of us did? Wow, I missed it. Why did we take motion before
I think afterwards, we just made.
student board member? I'm so sorry. I didn't realize we voted before the comments. Okay, go ahead. Aye. All right. So Jennifer, with that duly noted, thank you. All right, next I'm going to get this one right. 13C, ESSER 3 expenditure plan submission. It was previously presented to us by Mrs. Pearl Izuka and Dr. Lena Rector. It's an action item. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the ESSER 3 expenditure plan submission. This is an action item.
Thank you, President Ryan, members of the board, student board member, executive team, Dr. Delatorre, superintendent. Tonight, we will be presenting the elementary and secondary emergency relief 3 expenditure plan. The plan is required to be adopted by October 29th of 2021. And once adopted, later submitted to the LA County Office of Education and the CDE for final review and approval. So tonight, this plan is being presented to the board with the recommendation to consider taking action for approval. The purpose of the presentation tonight is to give the board a brief overview of the ESSER 3 funding, to share how these funds will be allocated per the required components of the ESSER 3 expenditure plan, which include 3 main areas: strategies for continuous and safe in-person learning, addressing the impact of lost instructional time, and use of any remaining funds. And lastly, we will be sharing next steps with regards to submission and implementation of the plan. I would like to now hand it over to Ms. Izuka, who will share a little bit more information about the ESSER 3 funding.
Okay, you can go to the next
Go to the
slide.
next one.
Thank you. So the elementary and secondary school emergency relief ESSER 3 plan is part of the Federal American Rescue Plan, the ARP. So many acronyms. We are required to develop an expenditure plan, and it's to explain how these funds will be used to address the academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs that were worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's the main purpose of these funds. Does require community engagement, and input is required. But along those lines, we got guidance from both Los Angeles County Office of Ed and California Department of Education that we can use our LCAP to augment and supplement with these funds, because we did have an extensive community engagement and input through that development of the LCAP. And so you will see that how we're using these funds are exactly what's in the LCAP, and that basically this ESSER 3 plan augments those funds. Okay. The ESSER requires for us to address 3 areas. One is strategies for continuous and safe in-person learning, and addressing the impact of lost instructional time. We are required, this plan requires at least 20% of the dollars we receive to be spent in this area. And lastly, that we can use it for a number of other things that are outlined in the plan. So
We will be allocated, we've started to receive some of the allocation, but in total, we will be allocated $2.3 million. In this plan, the three areas, strategies for continuous and safe in-person learning, we have allocated 1.2 million. Addressing the impact of lost instructional time, 969,251, which is more than the 20%. And lastly, $100,000 for the remaining. Those three total up to the 2.3 million. Okay, to talk about the different strategies, Dr. Rector will go into that.
Thank you, Ms. Izuka. So the first component that districts must address for the SR3 expenditure plan is the strategies for continuous and safe in-person learning. As you can see, we have allocated $1,235,500 for this component. And the actions that are included in this first component are the hiring of certificated teachers to meet the needs of students who may be on independent study, funding of the Apex Learning online curriculum, which is used as the curriculum for students in independent study, and lastly, to supplement any funding to address facility needs to ensure that our students are returning to a safe safe learning environment. The second component that districts must address in this plan is addressing the impact of lost instructional time. $969,251 has been allocated for this component. And the actions that are included for this component of the plan include summer school academic courses and specialized academic programs. And this runs K through grade 12. Reading and math intervention specialists. And this is particularly important in the early grades to ensure that our students are proficient in reading, writing, and math early on so that they continue to show progress as they matriculate through the grade levels. Academic intervention programs, curriculum and support, both at the district level as well as the site level. Professional learning opportunities so that we can continue to expand and increase teacher expertise in the areas of teaching and learning. And this will continue to promote our efforts in universal design for learning, PBIS, positive behavior interventions and supports, as well as multi-tiered systems of support. Academic screeners, curriculum and supports, and this is going to be critical for us to continue to monitor student progress, initially assess student learning, and then continue to monitor student progress, not only across years, but also within years. And then lastly, social emotional screeners and curriculum and support. And this really speaks to the social emotional and well-being needs of our students, really looking for a comprehensive relevant screener or diagnostic that we can use to assess students' well-being, their level of engagement, their level of school connectedness, so that they can be in a safe spot so that they can learn. And that will include the curriculum as well as supports in grades K through 12. And the last component of the plan, use of any remaining funds, Ms. Izuka will share. So lastly, the next area, you can go to the next slide. $100,000 we've allocated for technology, and it's to augment. And we use augment again because this is part of the LCAP. So this has to be additionally above what's in the LCAP. So we are suggesting that $100,000 augment this funding for student devices and purchase of educational technology for a regular and substantive educational interaction. I also want to say that a copy of the actual plan has been provided to you as part of this board agenda so that you can see exactly how those dollars or those action plans are to be spent. So the ESSER plan has that detail. And further in that document, that we also have to show how we're going to measure progress over time for those intervention activities. That's all part of that ESSER plan that you have in your agenda packet as well.
So the next steps, as I mentioned at the onset, this now will be submitted to LACO, who then will send it on to California Department of Ed. They are the ones that are overseeing those dollars, those federal dollars, and making sure that we're in compliance. And we're going to continue, we're going to implement this, and we'll continue to have continual progress and monitoring of our progress. And we'll certainly come back to you and report to you how we're doing. So with that, thank you. And we'll take your questions if you have any at this time.
The page 12.
Yes.
So they mentioned augment the funding for student device. So what was the definition of student device? Is that they have I think for the student basic need, or each school district they can have their, depends on their own condition or whatever, or their special need.
So, and I'll, Dr. Choi, address that, but our thinking is that we would just augment what's in the LCAP. So however, there's a detail in the LCAP for how technology is going to be implemented, whether it's increasing bandwidth to increasing site, I want to say connections. It all depends on that. And we're suggesting that these ESSER 3 funds augment that, so.
So Dr. Choi, before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, so during the COVID-19, your department keep improving for the technology. So roughly, how much per student we need to improve for the student device, or I think this probably is tough. It's not a tough. I mean, you probably need to spend the time to give me the answer. So like we have about 2,700 students, right? So each unit price, how much we have to spend?
That's a very good question. And I unfortunately, I don't have a very specific response and answer to that question. However, I think you highlight the fact that technology has many components. And, I presented to the board in the past about infrastructure, about devices, even cybersecurity. And I think in this plan, it's very wise to incorporate a plan for technology that's going to support the learning goals of the plan. So we're not being very specific, but at the same time, we're being specific enough where we are incorporating a technology component that's going to support educational interaction. So I think as part of a plan, it's very wise to incorporate this to help us achieve these goals.
So what do you think this moment after we spend the fund, and what is the level is that we need continue to improve or the technology?
I think we've made significant strides in upgrading equipment, especially old aging equipment. We've taken advantage of a lot of these opportunities, such as one-time funding to improve our technology. So I think it's definitely been a significant improvement in the last 2 years in terms of technology upgrades.
So the funding also including for the labor cost for your IT department?
Well, I think it's all interrelated. The technology department appreciates working with equipment that's updated and working with equipment that is not outdated. So we see that it is a critical function of any plan, which is integrating the technology with up-to-date technology, with up-to-date equipment.
Thank you.
If I may add to that question, I'm really happy to see that we have integrated technology into this plan to augment the actions and the goals that we have in the LCAP, because as Dr. Choi shared, technology becomes obsolete within like 2 or 3 years. The newest version, the latest version comes out. And if we are committed as a district to really integrating technology into our instructional program, it is very important that we meet the needs of all learners at all levels through technology to be able to personalize their learning and break down those 4 walls so we can have collaboration and creativity so students can learn outside of those classrooms as well. But not only for the students, but also for the teachers, to equip our teachers with the latest technology so that they can deliver world-class instructional programs to their students.
Anyone else with questions or comments?
I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate all the work, especially the alignment with the LCAP. We all know that we are not given enough to actually meet our LCAP goals in a regular school year. And so I really am grateful for the flexibility of the federal government giving us this funding, because that's $2.3 million. That's a huge amount of money we would not have to be able to meet all of these huge range of needs, from academic loss, assessment, technology, social, emotional, and coming back from the pandemic. Those are certainly where we want to be able to put our dollars, is where it's going to really impact the students. So I know that there was a report recently, I think, about a lot of states, a lot of districts have not submit plans, and auditing has shown that they really are not using the money where they're supposed to be using it to meet the students' needs. So I'm really appreciative of the work and the thought that was put into this by our district and our staff. So thank you.
Anyone else? No? Just a couple of questions. In terms of intervention, and I think that's probably for Dr. Richter, how are we using the funds to address the special ed students, the EL students, the students that may have had substantial learning loss, whether it be social, emotional, or academic, or, you know, lack of interaction with their peers? How have we done that?
Absolutely. So over the past 3 months now, our teachers and principals at all 4 of our schools have done an amazing job, really, of looking at students as they return to the classroom, providing informal and formal assessments, whether they be curriculum-based assessment or program-based assessments, to really identify where there are gaps in learning or unfinished learning, which is a very key term. And then setting up the appropriate interventions and supports so that they can meet students where they are and move them forward from that point. And that's really important. And for social emotional learning, it's critically important because we have a wonderful wellness counselor at the high school who has now interns working under who can expand those services. And we're working closely at the elementary level to make sure that those services trickle down to the elementary students as well, because there is a need at the elementary just as there is at the secondary level. So integrating a social emotional screener into our instructional program as well as programs. I know that we've started PALS in the elementary level, and that's a program that teaches and guides students through social emotional learning, self-confidence, self-esteem, self-management, and the principals have found that very successful. So we want to be able to expand those programs. The purchase contract of a diagnostic assessment or a universal screener recently made the decision to move forward. That's going to be key in assessing students throughout the year in English language arts and math, and providing the individualized pathway through the iReady program to meet students where they are so that they can continually practice on the skills that they need additional support in, not only the skills, but the standards as well. And so based off the data that we're going to glean from those assessments or diagnostics, teachers will be able to have the data in front of them, actionable data where they can develop relevant standards-based interventions to support those students needing additional support.
Thank you. And so will these interventions be pushed in, pull out? When we're addressing the gaps, there's going to be a group of students that we could look to accelerate the learning, not only mitigate the learning loss, but how do we address that?
That's a very good question. And because this plan really focuses on learning loss, I think universal design for learning and multi-tiered systems of support is going to be key to address all learning levels of students, because we want our students to excel, even if they're performing at grade level, we want to excel, escalate them to the next level. And these interventions are currently in place either during school or after school. Teachers are involved in providing interventions to their students, so that's wonderful. Students have the connections to their teachers, so they feel safe and comfortable being in an intervention class or an intervention session with their students. But we're also looking at expanding our summer school programs to look at interventions during the summer, whether it's a reading camp or a math academy, whatever it may be, but extending it beyond just remediation or enrichment, but to truly focus in on where our needs are as a district and utilize that time during the summer to provide those interventions or programs.
Thank you. All right, do we need to?
I make a motion that we approve the ESSER3 expenditure plan submission.
A second?
Thank you, Mrs. Jack. Thank you, Mrs. Chong. With that, I'd like to do roll call. Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mrs. Jack,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, student board member.
Aye.
Motion passes. ESSER3 expenditure plan submission has been. Thank you. Next, board superintendent discussion items. No? Okay.
I like to hear the update. So since the CDC, they already approved for the 5 to 12. So in our school district, what plan we have for vaccination?
I think Dr. Choi can
Yeah.
best speak to that topic.
Yeah, if I may clarify, the FDA panel that was reviewing vaccines for ages 5 through 11 has approved and recommended that the FDA and CDC approve it. So we're still waiting for the CDC to make the final approval for ages 5 through 11. In preparation for that, we partnered with, the district has partnered with Albertsons again to prepare and coordinate a vaccine clinic at our elementary sites. And at this time, the tentative date is November 12th and December 3rd for the second dose. This is anticipation that the CDC will give their final approval within the next week. And that will provide us the opportunity to implement that vaccine clinic for our students that are interested.
So for your plan, we will take one day, right?
So
we finish it short, right?
Yes, so we're looking at the Pfizer vaccine, the first dose on November 12th, and then the second dose on December 3rd.
Do you think this time can suggest the land maybe have some pediatrician standby? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe Albertsons is very experienced in helping schools prepare and coordinate vaccine clinics. And as in past practice, when we last had our vaccine clinic over at Huntington Middle School, they were very well prepared and serving our students. So I anticipate that the same will happen for this vaccine clinic drive that we're preparing for.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I'd like to thank Dr. Choi for planning ahead on that topic. It's great thing and getting ready so that as soon as it's available, we jump on it for our students. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. We do not need to return to close.